to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about how I got my first job out of college, which took me from the great state of Texas, where I lived my entire life, all the way up to our nation's capital in Washington, D.C., where I worked on Capitol Hill straight out of college. I'm going to tell you my story of how I got there. I have had this exact conversation and given these exact pieces of advice that I'm going to lay out in this video to countless individuals who have reached out to me on LinkedIn, social media. They know me in real life, asking about how I got a job on Capitol Hill. And I'm going to tell you these things because I just think it's important to get good people into public service. I still do work for the government, but now I'm not in the House of Representatives or the United States Senate, which is where I previously was. And there are lots of different career paths that can get you right out of college into a full-time job working in government and politics, depending on what your interests are. I hope that someone out there finds this video helpful, whether it is a recent college graduate, someone who is graduating in the near future, the far future, maybe someone who graduated a couple years ago, or just anybody that's interested in serving their country for either party, the Democrats, Republicans, maybe you're independent, whatever, because I think that that is especially critical right now. We live in a very divided society. You don't need me to tell you that. Let's get started. So I'm going to start by telling you how I got a job right out of college. I started on Capitol Hill the day after I graduated from Texas A&M University. Technically, it was actually 2 days after because I graduated and walked the stage on a Friday evening, and then I was on a plane to DC the very next morning, bright and early at 8 a.m. It was awful. I actually think that it is significantly easier to start on Capitol Hill or to start working for the government when you are younger, when you are in your early 20s. It's a lot easier to get your foot in the door than, say, you have 10 years of work experience in other places, 5 years, whatever that might be, and you're trying to jump industries over into politics and government. Maybe you've heard this, maybe you haven't, that sometimes it's not what you know, it's who you know. Working in the government, working in politics, and especially working on Capitol Hill, it is very much about who you know. But here's the thing, you don't have to actually know anybody to work in that place. I didn't. I really truly did not personally know a single person in my immediate network of people, friends, relatives, whatever, that worked on Capitol Hill. I had to dig a little bit into my network to figure out where those people were, but I will touch on that in a little bit. I have a more specific career path, I guess, that has allowed me to be in both the House and the Senate in a very short amount of time. Now, like I said, I'm no longer on Capitol Hill, but I still do the whole government thing. I'm still doing the same type of job that I did. I would say that a lot of political offices, especially on Capitol Hill, are split into 3 different categories. There are 3 main departments in any office, and that is communications, does the messaging, they speak to the media, they run the social media accounts. Yes, there are a lot of elected officials that do not run their own social medias. There is traditional communications that speaks to the media, and then digital communications, which does a lot of the content creation and social media, which of course is incredibly, critically important in the world that we live in today. That is so interconnected because of social media. From there, there is policy. Of course, the people that are actually researching and figuring out how to write the bills. That's not my area of expertise. I am a communications person. Obviously, I have a YouTube channel. I like the whole social media thing, content creation. That's my vibe. The other area in an office is operation. That is scheduling the member of Congress's schedule, which is actually a very difficult job, and I have a lot of admiration and respect for schedulers on the Hill and in other government offices. It's pretty tough. You have to be very organized. And operations also falls into office management, so daily administrative tasks, that can also be a role. Staff assistants and interns also fall into that category. So an entry-level job on Capitol Hill is called a staff assistant. That is pretty much the next step up from intern, and a lot of people will tell you, if you are interested in working on Capitol Hill, that you have to start as an intern to move up to a staff assistant or a communications assistant or whatever it might be. And I will tell you that that is not always true. I never interned on Capitol Hill. I never had been to DC before I started working there. I made it very clear in my interviews and in my outreach efforts with people that I only wanted to do communications. I was open to staff assistant and I was open to intern if I just couldn't find anything else, but my top priority was communications. I knew that no matter what industry I worked in when I graduated, it would be using my degree. I was a communications major, so I wanted to do something that in my mind made sense and was using the degree that I had just spent, $100,000 on. So I knew that about myself. I encourage you to think about these three categories of policy, communications, and operations. Think about where your strengths would lie. I knew what mine were, and I communicated that effectively in every single phone call I had, every single interview I had. Another thing that you should know is which party you want to work for. Honestly, don't be that person that is like, oh, I would be open to working for either one, because if you don't end up in a party that similarly matches your values, it's going to be really difficult to switch over to the other party later. There is a kind of unspoken rule in DC that you can only change parties one time. Know if you want to work for the Republicans or the Democrats. Know that about yourself. Honestly, that's where you start your search, is figuring out what party you want to work for. So after you figured out which party you want to work for and which department you would prefer to be a part of, then I would recommend thinking deep into who you possibly know could either know someone who worked on Capitol Hill or worked for the government in any capacity at any point in their life. Think about your family members. Think about your friends from high school, your friends that you are friends with in college. Think about your mentors. I specifically was pretty involved on campus, which that's also kind of a stereotype that you see up in DC, is a lot of people who are in student government and student council and organizations like that typically end up there. So there is that pipeline. I was in student government. I did the whole student council, whatever. And so I had some friends in the university government relations department. I also had other professors who were mentors to me who helped me with this. And I just simply reached out to them when I was starting to really crunch and looking for jobs in the spring semester of my senior year of college. And I said, hey, I want to work for this party. I want to go to DC. Can you please help me? And as a recent or an upcoming graduate, that is completely understandable. You are allowed to ask for favors, and it doesn't mean to take advantage of the people that want to help you. All I'm saying is that for every mentor who helped me, for every phone call I had, I made sure to pay it forward in some way later. Part of that is me making this video right now. I got connected to a couple of people, and from there, it just starts this whole web of conversations and phone calls that you have with individuals. The pay it forward mindset is a pretty big thing up in DC. Like, I don't think I ever reached out to someone who just straight up didn't email me back or didn't set up a phone call with me. People are pretty okay with telling you their stories of how they got up there, because chances are they got a job on Capitol Hill because they had a phone call exactly like the one that you're having with them. That has been the case for people that I've now recommended for internships and jobs who have got those. It's because we had a phone call. Use LinkedIn. Tap into your network. Set up phone calls with people. Set up Zoom calls. Don't be afraid to ask people to go get coffee and ask for professional advice. One thing is that people really like to talk about themselves. So that's something to lean into, especially when you are trying to learn more about a certain workplace if you've never worked there before, like I did. So essentially, I had a ton of phone calls and Zoom calls, probably at least like 50 plus maybe, just asking people about their experiences on Capitol Hill. And I ended every single phone call with, I want to work in communications. If you know any communications openings on the Hill or know anybody that might know of those, can you please connect me to them? And can you please keep me in mind? I will send you my resume. That is how I ended every single phone call. Don't be afraid to make the two big asks, asking for a job and a connection, asking if it's okay to send them your resume if they don't have it already. Hi, kitten. My little kitten is right below the video camera, and I think he actually knocked this off the counter earlier because the camera like clattered to the floor and I had a heart attack. I was in the other room. Anyways, the camera's fine, I think. So from there, I remember one day I got a text message from one of those people who graduated from my university years ago. and she remembered our phone call. She texted me and said, hey, one of my best friends is a communications director on Capitol Hill. Let me send your resume to him because he's looking for a communications assistant. So I freaked out. I was so excited. A couple hours later, I got an email from that communications director. He sent me an application. I filled it out. I did this all very quickly. So that's another thing when you're job searching is don't waste people's time. Recognize that those people are in the professional world. They are also very, very busy. Just be respectful of their time. People who work on the Hill are extraordinarily busy all the time. It is not an easy place to work. So fast forward a couple of weeks and I ended up getting that job offer. It was my top choice. I was also interviewing and had received offers for a couple different things, but I, of course, wanted the full-time job. I wanted the communications job, and that is where I started my career. The reason I started my job so quickly after graduating is because things on Capitol Hill move extraordinarily quickly. People want you to start yesterday. Like, they want you to be able to start immediately. Kind of keep that in mind if you do secure a job offer. This just isn't like the corporate world, or like if you're an engineer where you get a job offer an entire year before you start and then you don't start for 3 months after you graduate. Capitol Hill is just not like that. They will maybe let you wait a couple of weeks after you graduate, depending on when you actually get the offer, but they need people to start immediately all the time. Once you are on Capitol Hill, it is very easy to move to different offices. I did that. It's easy to go from the House to the Senate to the House, whatever you might want to do. Here are some key differences between the House of Representatives and the United States Senate. So the U.S. House of Representatives typically is a little bit younger, not only in just the people who are elected to serve there, but the staffers. The teams are smaller because there's, I think, an 18 or 20 person limit for how many individuals can be staffing one entire office, and that also includes the district offices. House offices are a little bit smaller, so in that sense, you probably get closer to people a little bit easier. The House of Representatives is extremely chaotic. In comparison, the Senate is way slower. The Senate is, oh, there's Bobby. The Senate is where more people go to have actual careers. You'll see that the Senate staff is a little bit older. Of course, the Senate, or the senators themselves, are also, you know, a lot older. So I think that a lot more people go into the Senate to have a full-on career. They work there for like 40 years. They have families, they have kids. So just kind of think about what pace of life you want. If you love chaos, if you genuinely thrive in chaos and never want to ever be bored, then go work in the House. That also means that burnout can happen a little bit easier. But if you want to kind of enjoy DC a little more, enjoy life a little bit more maybe, then the Senate is just a little bit slower paced. Of course, senators are elected to serve for 6 years versus people in the House are elected to serve 2 years at a time. You can see one chamber is trying to get stuff done constantly. The other chamber knows that they have a little bit more time. Of course, there's young people all over Capitol Hill. I joke that the government is run by 20-year-olds because it kind of is. It's a very fast-paced place. There are some aspects of the Hill, stereotypes, if you will, that I will confirm are relatively true, and that is, for some offices, really crazy hours for very little pay. Full transparency, my first job on Capitol Hill, I was making $40,000. That was what I was offered. And then Nancy Pelosi moved the House salary minimum up to $45,000. So now if you are an entry-level staffer in the House, you are legally required to make at least $45K. However, Washington, D.C. is one of the most expensive cities in the entire country and also the entire world. Keep that in mind when you are deciding if you want to go up there or not. The experiences that you get in the career development and how many things you learn in that environment. I learned more stuff on Capitol Hill I did in any years of schooling, because you're dealing with so many real life issues and policy things can be very complicated. So you learn a lot, you meet a lot of really energized people, hopefully are there to do good things. and I hope that you watching this video, you want to go up there and do good things as well. Like I said at the beginning of this, we need more good people working in the government. We need more good people working on Capitol Hill. While I don't ever want to work on Capitol Hill again, I'm very grateful that I had that experience, because I would not have the job that I have today that brought me back to Texas, where I now live in Austin, if I hadn't taken the leap and trusted myself to be able to go to the other side of the country to try my very best to make a difference. I learned so much. I hope that this video is at least a little bit helpful to someone out there. I hope that some of my thoughts were articulated in a way that made sense. It all comes down to this. It really is about who you know and who you can get to flag your resume, who you can hop on a phone call with. If you want to have a conversation with me, comment something below, send me a message, let me know. I genuinely have these conversations with people all the time. I constantly am taking phone calls from prospective Capitol Hill staffers or people who want to work in politics and government. I'm happy to have those conversations, and I'm happy to give that knowledge to people. Tap into your network, because you never know who you might meet or who you might already know has the ability to get you up here and help you start a job that will help you to make a difference. Anyways, if you have any other specific questions, be sure to drop them in the comments. I will try my best to respond to as many as I can. Like I said, I hope this video was helpful. I think I said that about 1,000,000 times in this, but that's the whole purpose of me making this. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and ask me any questions if you have them. Okay, bye!